I've been a skinny guy for my whole life. So yesterday at the gym with Liz was the first time in my life that I've been fat shamed.
Um,
Liz explained to me that the reason I don't cope well with the heat when I'm running is because I'm a bigger size person and I regulate my heat by sweating, which doesn't really work well in endurance in hot, humid conditions. Whereas she regulates her heat by skin capillary action. So that's why she's much better than me in hot conditions. Well,
actually, wait. So our listeners, our regular listeners, will want more explanation because you just kind of going out there and being like, I fat shamed you. It just doesn't sound like me. So they'll know that, you're exaggerating. I guess I did kind of say that, but it's because I got it from a book. And I have the exact quote on page 220 of the book that we're going to talk about today. It actually says, larger people are typically men, and sweating is their body's preferred way to lose heat, while smaller people, who are typically women, experience heat loss via the widening of blood vessels in the skin, so vasodilation. This becomes an advantage for smaller, typically female, athletes during hot and humid conditions where sweat cannot evaporate due to the moisture in the air and vasodilation is more effective. In hot and dry conditions, skin heat loss is less beneficial, putting most women at a disadvantage. And basically, I also told you that, most of the conditions we run in are like hot and humid. And you do sweat more than me, even though you might not be larger. So, like, I think it's still
it's
true.
okay. Okay, it's true. But you could have broken it to me a little bit more gently. Hi, and welcome to Running Book Reviews podcast, where we review books written for runners, about runners, and by runners to help you decide if you'd like to read the book for yourself. We also hope that listening to us chat about running can help keep you motivated about your own running and maybe inspire you to try something new or different. My name's Alan, and with my co-host Liz, we're going to talk today with authors Lily Canter and Emma Wilkinson about their book, Ultra Women, The Trailblazers Defying Sexism in Sport.
Recently, a trend has captured public attention. Female athletes have been beating the strongest male contenders in the toughest races in the world, races designed for men. In Ultra Women, the authors, who are themselves endurance athletes, delve into the surprising science of sporting performance to explore the physiological and psychological differences between sexes. They ask, could fat stores and muscle type and capacity for not sleeping really give women an edge over men in ultra long distances? And what roles are played by pace, preparation, and motherhood? The sleep deprivation and motherhood, they kind of go together, but maybe we'll talk about that later. Speaking to lead athletes, historians, and scientists, the book unearths the largely unknown past of female endurance from hunter-gatherer to the early 20th century discipline of pedestrianism. And we get to meet some amazing women who have done amazing things. So a little bit about the authors. These bios are not going to do justice to these two women because I think there's a lot more than there was written in the back cover of the book from, some Google searching, but here it goes. Lily Canter is a freelance running, fitness, and adventure travel journalist writing for Runner's World, Live for the Outdoors, I guess that's another magazine, Women's Health, The Guardian, and Metro. She is an England athletics running coach and founder of women's only club Great Bowden Runners. Hopefully I say all that right because like with all these English names, like I always kind of massacre them and then Alan laughs at me, but he's not laughing, so
I,
I think
I,
I'm
would-
okay.
I would have said Great Bowden, but
It
that's,
is it is Great Bowden, but it's live for the outdoors, not live for the
there you
outdoors.
go.
Oh boy. Okay, well, here we go. She competes in ultra marathons and canicrosses with her dog, which sounds like a lot of fun. I've kind of thought of doing that with my sister's dog because she would have loved that. She's on Instagram, so you can follow her at Lily Canter. A little bit about Emma. Emma Wilkinson is an award-winning freelance journalist specializing in medicine, science, and health. She has written for the Sunday Times, BBC, Pulse, the BMJ, and Lancet, among others. Emma lives in Sheffield and runs up hills for fun. And she can be followed on Instagram as well at Emma W. Journo, almost like journal, but
Yeah.
with an O at the end instead of an AL. So,
Yeah.
welcome to the podcast, both of you. So nice to meet you both.
Hi guys.
Hi.
So I'm here with 3 female super athletes and 1 fat guy, apparently.
Who sweats a lot.
Okay. Okay. You can't see that because all you see is Alan's head in this video, but like Alan is basically
The skinniest
You know-
guy in the club, basically.
we go to a gym where it's actually a CrossFit gym, but we just go there to like use their weights. And yeah, basically Alan doesn't look like he belongs there at all because he's kind of like this stick figure guy. He's just there, lifting some weights. Almost like one of those like scrawny teenagers that's trying to bulk up.
Just breaking the paradigms. Here we go.
So let's get into the book. First of all, how did you guys decide to write the book? And also, how did you guys decide to write it together? Because
Yeah, are you good buddies or?
We are, yeah. So Lily and I have known each other for 20 odd years since we did our journalism masters at university. And we both gone off in different directions, doing various bits of journalism, and then our paths had crossed again when we got into journalism teaching. And a few years ago, Lily started running and got really into it. I'd always been a runner. And so we started doing things together. And in the pandemic, just before the pandemic, actually, she talked me into doing an ultra, and we were sort of training for that. The pandemic got in the way of that, but we did start doing ultras. And I think on those long runs, we started talking about projects we might want to do together and a book we might want to do together. We'd written before a journalism textbook. So we knew that we could work together. So then we started kind of throwing ideas around, I think, for running books. And there was a big evolution of this book of kind of where it started and where it ended up. But this ultra running and women in endurance was something we were really interested in at the time.
And did you find
Yeah.
any other books that you like took inspiration from, or was it that there weren't any others and that's what made you really want to create this one?
Yeah, I think when we were looking at the market, we realised that a lot of the endurance books were written by men, like the vast majority were written by men. And there weren't any books that specifically looked at female endurance. So there might be kind of memoirs written by women, but there was nothing that really digged into the sort of physiology, the history, the psychology, the sociology of women specifically, and endurance. And everything just seemed to be through a male lens. And like Emma said, it sort of evolved. Originally, it was we wanted to focus on ultra running because that's what we were doing. And we were seeing that in the races that we were doing, that we would often be overtaking men in the like final stages of the races, and they would seem to be like really destroyed, whereas we were just sort of plodding along at our kind of comfortable pace, and not tiring out, and not burning out as easily. And we just we wondered kind of if so many, it seemed to be that women are quite good at these kind of super long events, but why are there not many women doing it? We were always, just a handful of women, maybe 10, perhaps 20% women on the start line. And yet there was these stories like Jasmine Paris when she won the spine race outright. That was kind of a story that went global. And we just thought there's something here, that the women are very good at these types of events, but they're not doing them. And we need to, we need to kind of celebrate women's achievement and kind of dig into why women might be particularly suited to endurance. And it soon sort of evolved away from just running, and we looked at swimming and cycling and adventure racing, like anything that's just like super long basically, but it grew out of our own sort of interest in ultra running.
Why is it that, or what's the theory around why women don't do this then, if they're so good at it?
Yeah, I think there's a number of factors. But I think as a society, we're not very good at giving women the time and space to actually go out and train for these kind of events. We actually did our own survey of runners, and there seems to be this barrier between marathon and ultra marathon. Like, women will train for a marathon but feel incredibly guilty about doing it, and then won't attempt, maybe won't attempt another one because of the guilt of being away from the family. And the idea of doing an ultra marathon would mean even more time away from the family, and that's not something they feel that they're able to do. So there's a real issue here with, women have less leisure time than men. They have, in the UK, they have 4 hours less leisure time a week than men because they're doing all the caring.
Okay.
And
so the training doesn't fit into their gender role, basically.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And yeah, obviously with ultras, it takes more training, but also confidence is a huge factor as well, that women don't necessarily have the self-belief that they can do something that is that kind of far a distance. And there's this kind of myth perhaps that, you have to be some elite, superhuman to kind of take on these kind of challenges. And from a very early age, women and young girls kind of are made to not really feel like they belong in sport. Boys are always prioritized, like right the way down to primary school age. All the funding that goes into sport, most of it goes into boys' sport. So it goes all the way down really to early years, and girls just not being as active and as sporty and feeling like a place where they belong. So if you get to an ultra endurance event, which is quite an extreme version of sport, it's even less likely that women are going to feel they belong or feel that the confidence that they can take on that kind of challenge. So there's all these kind of things that are going on in society that are affecting sport. And I think in endurance sport, that's only, magnified further.
Do you take caffeine when you run? Lots of people do because it's in gels and stuff. And caffeine's legal and it's been proven to work. There's actual science that shows that it improves your endurance running performance.
And there's anecdotal data from when you have your coffee in the morning and you go for a workout versus when you forgot to have your coffee or you didn't have time and you went for a workout and it was terrible.
And the trouble with coffee is there's a lot of liquid just to get your caffeine dose.
Yeah, so then you have to stop for the bathroom mid-workout. Very impractical. Which is where Caffeine Bullet comes in.
What's Caffeine Bullet, Liz?
It's a caffeine supplement. It's wrapped up like in a candy. And it tastes like candy. And you can get 100 milligrams or 85 milligrams, which is about a cup of coffee, but without the liquid.
So we've tried the mint flavor and the chocolate orange flavor. They're both pretty yummy.
If you want to try them for yourself, we do have a 20% off discount code. So go to the link in the show notes and you can check out what Caffeine Bullet is and get your 20% discount.
Pretty generous.
It is pretty generous.
And we'll get a small benefit, so you're helping out the...
Speaking of which, back to the podcast.
Yeah, and I think we also found through writing the book, we were finding all these stories that sometimes would hit the headlines like Jasmine, but it's always treated as a one-off rather than a pattern of endurance sport being something that women are good at. And if you see that as just something that's unique or, she's very unusual for being able to do that, but actually this isn't something for women, you don't see other women doing it, it becomes this kind of self-fulfilling prophecy, I think, that it's not something that you can do. And the confidence is a huge part of it. So Lily and I took part in a trail ultra this summer that was female only, and it was kind of the first one. It was basically like an entry, like come and try doing an ultra, and every single woman who started that race finished it. There was no DNFs, And it's
Oh,
just kind of
wow.
having that support. Yeah, it's just kind of having that supportive environment, getting rid of restrictive cut-offs, making women feel comfortable, like they are supposed to be there. And if you give them that support, they will do it and do really well. So yeah, there's many chapters on the barriers because it covers so many different aspects.
Is there a sort of a macho speed performance kind of pseudo barrier? Because usually people get into ultras, or certainly from a running point of view, from our club, you graduate, you get couch to 5K to 10K to marathon. And of course, when you're going through that, you tend to be speed focused, performance focused, and it's a bit sort of macho. And then you get into events that have, I know when I was doing some ultra events, I was obsessed with the time cutoffs. So will I make the time cutoffs? Will I make the time cutoffs? So it tends to all be set up. Either you're graduating from a speed-based apprenticeship, let's say, or you come into an environment that probably because historically it's set up by men with pace and speed in mind. Or maybe there's just genuinely difficulties with, we need to close the event or whatever with time cutoffs. So they tend to be all speed focused. Whereas, as you've said, females, when they come into a nurturing endurance based, just continued effort based, they have excellent performance. They just never get there because of these speed related barriers.
Yeah, and I think it's not always actually that the cut-offs are too tight. It's just they're not um, communicated very well. They don't communicate, this is actually a walking pace. Like if you walk consistently, you will meet these cut-offs.
Yeah.
Instead, these races are marketed as the most brutal, the toughest,
Yeah.
very macho language. Marathon des Sables is kind of seen as this like really sort of elite race, but it's a walking race. Like you can, most people walk it. I know lots of people who are hikers who've done it. They've never run in their life, but it's not marketed like that. So I think there are some issues with some races where the cutoffs are very tight, and I think Ironman has a particular challenge with this around triathlon. But certainly a lot of ultra marathons, the cutoffs are quite generous, but they're not communicating that very well. And there's other things you can do, like Emma mentioned the event that we did, the She Races 50K, was they allowed some people to start a bit earlier. So they had, they had an earlier start if people were a bit nervous about those cutoffs. They were given like an extra 90 minutes. I mean, actually, with that race, there wasn't any cutoffs, but they were giving them like that little bit of extra daylight to start if they wanted to, or if they didn't really want to be part of a mass start. So there's just small things like that you can do just to encourage women and to make them feel, more comfortable. So yeah, I think part of it is the time that they think, that they might not have the confidence to meet those cutoffs. But I think a lot of it is the distance. It's like I could never go that far. And I guess as well, if you have come from a running club background where road running is so focused on speed, that you don't realize that in ultras, actually, there's a lot of walking involved. Particularly, if you're not competitive. If you're just a recreational runner, then, everyone's walking the hills, everyone's having snacks along the way. It's a very different kind of event. It's not speed, it's not pressure, it's just kind of a jolly day out. So again, it's just kind of communicating that I think is sometimes like the barrier that people don't necessarily understand because they've never been part of that world.
So you actually mentioned the She Races. What are they? And also, what's the benefit of having races like that?
Yeah, so She Races is an organisation that was set up in the UK by Sophie Power, and it's a charity that really wants to make sport more equitable for everyone. But I guess it's had a sort of focus at the beginning on leveling the starting line, increasing participation, female participation in races. And the idea behind having a women's only event was because of all these barriers that women, they did a survey of 2,000 women, and some of them just don't feel comfortable in these events where you've got 80% men. Like they're just not going to turn up to a race with 80% men. Particularly, the recreational runners, they haven't been in mixed run clubs. They feel more comfortable around other women. They feel they can make themselves more vulnerable and take on something more challenging in the company of women. It's a very different vibe to a race full of men, which can feel, like I say, much more macho, much more competitive, not as friendly. I mean, it's not necessarily like that, but that's the perception at least. And I think, like Emma said, with She Races, they had 100% completion of their ultra. There wasn't a single DNF. And many of those women were like, okay, now I'm going to go and do a mixed event. Now I know what it's all about. Now I feel confident. Now I've had this nice friendly experience. I feel much more ready to go into a mixed race. So it's a stepping stone. It's not saying we should be separating out male and female races. It's just kind of that pathway for some women. Not everyone it's not going to be for everyone. Like, we went to mixed race and we've always been fine with that. But it's just recognizing that for some people, they just do need a slightly different way into these kind of races.
Yeah, and we talk about Sophie in the book. So every chapter of the book starts with a story of somebody. So a female athlete, or it might be a scientist who's doing some research. Yeah, someone who's doing some specific training for something. And Sophie is one of the stories because the reason she started She Races is there was a photo of her at UTMB breastfeeding her 3-month-old in the midway round this ultra race because she wasn't allowed to defer her place, that she'd worked like years to build up these points to get to be able to get on that start line, and she wasn't allowed to defer it for pregnancy, whereas you could defer if you were injured. So she that photo went really, really viral, and she just wanted to make the point that this is a stupid policy, basically. And it all just came out of that photo, and your listeners might kind of remember that happening.
I think I'd heard about it, but I don't remember seeing the photo. I just remember hearing the story.
And they've subsequently changed the policy, so it had the required effect, I think.
Yeah, they did. And she's been working with a lot of different race companies, not just in the UK, but around the world, to bring in pregnancy deferral policies and, other changes as well.
I mean, a lot of it is kind of passive. It's a sort of thing that I guess the guys who are kind of in control and doing it in the majority just don't think about.
Yeah.
And it's not like, well, let's make it difficult for it's just, let's set it up how we think. And
yeah. Or it's like, well, we have no policy. Becomes, yeah, we have no policy, so we're going to say no. Reading your book, one of the things that came back to me reading your book was the 800 meters at the Amsterdam Olympics in 1928. The women ran the 800 meters, and it seemed that there was some pretty biased male reporting on the afterwards of that. And it seemed to me that single event seemed to set, maybe it's just in retrospect, that single event seemed to set back the cause of women's athletics about 50 years. Because the 800 meters, because, just correct me if I'm wrong, but I think all the women were lying down at the end, or a lot of them, because they've just raced the fastest 800 meters in their lives and they're exhausted. And the report was, they almost died or something like that. We shouldn't be allowing them to do this. Their uteruses might fall out.
Exactly, yeah. So I think, so we go back to kind of the dawn of the modern Olympic Games, that, the founder set it up as to showcase male prowess, basically, didn't want women anywhere near it. Kind of women were campaigning at the time to be involved and were basically told no. And so there was this campaigning kind of going on over the years, and I think eventually they were allowed to enter some, like a really small number of sports and very short athletic events. And then yeah, in 1928 they were allowed to run the 800 meters, which they did fast, breaking, records. And then you're tired, right? We've all seen the 800-meter athletics where everybody's kind of collapsing on the track at the end of it because you've exhausted, because you've run for your life. But instead of kind of seeing that as an athletic achievement, it was seen as an example, like, see, women can't do it. They're too weak. And so, yeah, it gets to the point that we didn't have a women's marathon in the Olympic Games until 1984. That's so recent.
It's
It's
absolutely
amazing.
ridiculous. I ran my
Yeah.
first marathon in 1981.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
and
It's
that's
madness.
bonkers.
But, there'd been, since Catherine Switzer in the late 60s and Bobby Gibb, there'd been this kind of wave of campaigning women who were saying, look, we can do this. We are doing it. We are doing it in these running clubs that we're running with men. We're doing it by entering races under different names or under our initials. We've shown that we can do it. And yet it's not until 1984 that officially there's a women's marathon in the Olympics. So yeah, I think, it has been such slow progress. So with ultra now becoming more popular, you can kind of see that you would hope that the proportion of women doing ultra as its visibility increases would also increase. But like we've said, we also need those active steps to encourage women and to kind of communicate to them what an ultra is like and help them to feel comfortable in something that they haven't tried before or done before.
So it's interesting about the participation because I was reading it in the book that you guys had actually looked at races and what the participation male female was really like. I haven't done that many ultra races, so maybe my perception is a little skewed, but it seemed to me that I mean in marathons it's about 50-50. That's what it is like in the ones that I do in North America. And then the few ultras I did were like 50K, so they weren't like very long. But that too seemed to be, about 50-50. So what is it really like? Like what did you find?
Yeah, I mean, I think if you look at marathons, there's still less women than men in marathon distance. The shorter the distance, the more it goes kind of the other way. So women are doing the shorter distances, and then the longer the distance, the less women are doing it. It does vary around the world. So it may be that in North America they're doing better at this. Certainly we found that in New Zealand, in some of their really big races, they've got 50-50. But the kind of average is around, sort of globally, is around 20%.
Oh,
And
wow.
the longer the race, the smaller that becomes. So you might find some more extreme races that maybe like be 200 miles plus, that you might only have 5 to 10% women. Yeah, it's very much correlates with the distance, really. But certainly in running, it's about 20%. In ultra cycling, it's less. It's more like 10%. I mean, cycling is even worse for female participation and barriers, and triathlon as well. In many ways, running is slightly ahead, but it's still not great. And the figures are not really going up either in the last couple of years. It's sort of, certainly in the UK, it's dipped a little bit. There's been less women doing ultras. So there is kind of a push. There's certainly a lot more awareness now, and there's a lot of races that are trying to do a lot more to encourage women to enter, like doing, recce's, where people can come along and recce the route with the race organisers, talking, doing online sessions to brief people. I mean, we did a 24-hour race recently, and they were very nearly at 50.
Yeah, it's like 48, I think.
Yeah, but they do a lot of work to, make it as female friendly as possible, and to, they put on loads of briefing events. The course is very, it's got lots of toilets. They've got sanitary products. they're always available for information. They try and make their race as accessible as possible. We saw partially sighted runners doing that race as well. They're doing a lot of work to make it accessible for everyone. So it can be done, and it makes sense financially as well for organizations to do it. But like you say, a lot of people just don't see it because it's not their experience. So they don't even see that there are any barriers there. It hasn't dawned on them that maybe it'd be a good idea to have sanitary products in the toilets, or to have a pre-race, online briefing so people can ask questions. So yeah, it's changing slowly, but there's still quite a long way to go.
Yeah, I mean, all those things, even as a woman, like I guess as a woman, I'm used to having sanitary products in like everything. Like all my bags have something, or like you ask your friend because I don't know, you had a surprise on race day or whatever. I guess those are things that like we deal with and we don't think about, but actually it's not that hard for a race organizer to help, to make it,
Yeah, but from a general male perspective, these are also something we don't really think about ever and don't ever consider
No,
because it
because you've
doesn't
never
come
been
into our
asked if you
world.
have a tampon.
Yeah.
No, and this is the thing is that, and we've had the reaction to the book. We've had men saying like, what can we do? What do we need to be doing to make things better for women? Because, we don't think of these things.
Yeah.
And, it's like, talk to women, just ask them what they need. Don't make any assumptions, just, ask women and get women, more involved.
Switching gears a little bit, looking at male and female physiology and their adaptability for endurance events. The general conclusion is that males have the great advantage of testosterone, which translates into a higher VO2 max. VO2 max, for anybody who doesn't understand the jargon, just think oxygen uptake for now. We'll go into detail on that in another podcast. And more muscle because of testosterone. But when we're talking about ultras, these things are not necessarily such an advantage. And there are some other factors that are perhaps come into play that are more geared towards women. Probably I shouldn't even be asking this sort of question and comparing men and women. Well, I mean, kind of why do we do it? We don't say, well, men can beat little children because they're taller and they've got bigger skeletons and they got muscle. I mean, we just don't compare, but we're always going, oh, men versus women, women versus men. But so I apologize for the question, but there it is.
No, I mean, it's one of the reasons we wrote the book. We wanted to dive into that physiology of what are the reasons? Are there any specific reasons, whether that's through physiology, psychology, whatever it might be, that women are good at endurance? If we see time and time again a woman winning a race outright, a mixed race outright, and that's we're all that's in the media, that's kind of taken as such a surprising fact that Jasmine Paris can win the spine race.
Yeah.
This summer's spine race, the first two athletes through were women in their 50s. So we wanted to dig into why this might be. And I think one thing that it came down to that I'd never really heard before or considered before is because testosterone, like you say, is the hormone that's associated with strength and power, and all that's true. But when it comes to endurance, estrogen is your superpower, because estrogen is the hormone that determines the makeup of our muscles and how we metabolize fuel and all these kind of other bits that mean that you can keep going for longer. So we've got a chapter, for example, on fatigue resistant muscles and the type of muscle fibers that you have more of, that mean they can keep going for longer. And actually, in terms of research, that's one of the areas that we found with the strongest research that's been shown time and time again in lots of different studies, and actually probably goes a long way to explain why women are good at endurance and can keep going at kind of that steadier pace for longer. And yeah, we also looked into how women metabolize fuel as well. So Lily, you can take over that one because that's your area of expertise.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose in a nutshell, women are better at utilizing fat stores than men. They're more efficient. And when you're doing these super long distances, you will at some point be tapping into your fat stores because you'll be depleted of any other kind of energy source. So that could be, an advantage for women, is that basically they've got energy for longer because of the fat stores, because of the muscles being more resistant to fatigue. And then there are just the psychological factors as well. And so, yeah, I mean, I think your caveat is really important, that and this is we found ourselves kind of going round and round in this in the book, that we're trying to sort of say women are great at endurance. These are some of the reasons why. You can't really do that without comparing to men, because men is kind of the benchmark, and men is what all the research is being done on, and that's what we kind of see in the sport. But ultimately we came to the same conclusion, that yeah, we need to stop comparing men and women. This is not really helpful for anybody. What we're trying to say is women can be, just as successful at this, get as much out of it, can do these kind of challenges just as much as men can. And they need to be kind of measured in their own right. And also we need to understand a lot more about women's bodies, because still the vast majority of research is conducted on men, and there are very few studies that include large numbers of female athletes.
Yet it seems that when someone is willing to do these studies, so you talked about the Further project, which was the Lululemon project where they were running for like 6 days, and it was there was a lot of like media attention around that. And that was just for women. And so women got like all kinds of support, from nutrition to psychology to all kinds of things. And they went to run for 6 days, and they would get measured, like all kinds of things got measured. I guess it was a little bit compared to the Breaking Two project, where Nike was trying to break the 2 hour marathon time barrier. But they were, I don't know, it was a little criticized in some comments because it was all women, and they were saying, oh, it's just for Lululemon is doing it for publicity and whatever. But I think there was more to it than that. So what was this all about? And did it benefit like women's research?
Yeah, I mean, the full findings were not published before our book came out. So we were able to speak to some of the researchers and get some of sort of the initial feedback on kind of what they were looking for and why they were doing the project. I mean, ultimately, yes, this is Lululemon having a big publicity stunt, but all these things always are. But that doesn't mean science can't benefit off the back of it. And actually, they had, a really robust study. They were working with Canadian Institute of Sport. They were getting lots and lots of data from those women on the race that just simply hadn't been gathered before. Like I say, we haven't seen the results of that data yet, and whether Lululemon will publish that and make a big thing of it, I don't know. But I'm sure, the researchers themselves will be publishing that work. So I think it was a really useful thing to do, because it was highlighting women, it was supporting women, it was showing that you can take someone, they had elite athletes to someone who'd never run before, who basically went from not running to running over 300 kilometers. What women can do with the right support around them. And then there was the gathering of the data as well. So I think, yeah, ultimately, I think it was a useful exercise. And we should be seeing more of this. We should be trying to gather data about women and doing, and it wasn't about, well, I suppose they were trying to break certain world records with Camille Herron being there, but all the other athletes, it was really just about seeing how far they could go. So it wasn't this kind of defined, breaking whatever. It was much broader than that. And I don't think Lululemon actually did as much publicity off the back of it as they could have done. I think they kept it fairly straightforward, and maybe more will come out when the findings are published. But I think for the scientists involved, it was just a great way for them to get their sort of hands on some female athletes and get that data in that kind of extreme environment that you don't normally get access to.
Yeah, because we just need so much more data and research in order to support women to do endurance. You don't know how to train or how to fuel if all the data that's been gathered, and there's a lot of data that's been gathered, is on men. So I think, in order to get that, if you've got a sportswear company throwing a load of money at some scientists to say, let's collect some data, then great. In fact, I'd like, sportswear companies to be on board with the fact that we might need kit that fits differently. And yeah, how can they design that to maximize and help us be as efficient as we can in the sport? So yeah, I think it'll be interesting to see when the findings start coming out from that.
Yeah, I know sports bras have evolved a lot. You talk about it a little bit, I think, in the book, but just in terms of like personal evolution, I remember, about 15 years ago, sports bras were just basically tight crop tops. Like you just have this little, there was nothing to it, and now they're, all different shapes and sizes and support levels, and they're stretchy and comfortable, and it's
Yeah, but doing research, I think it was a McGill study, so it's probably in Montreal, doing research into how certain fits of sports bra might affect your ability to breathe over a long event is like stuff that just doesn't in the male world just doesn't get thought about. It's a different approach, and that was kind of cool in the book because from me, a male athlete's point of view, I was seeing things that I hadn't thought about. Like Liz would see the sports bra stuff and go, oh yeah, why can't they make one that doesn't pinch you under the arms or whatever,
that doesn't shape under the bra line?
For me, I was thinking, oh yeah, I guess if you were wearing some constricting garment over your chest, it might affect your ability to breathe. I'd never really thought about that. So, your book was highlighting those kind of things. The other thing in particular that kind of jumped at me was the story that you told about the ultra athlete. I think it was Jamie Aarons, the female ultra athlete, who set a new FKT for running the Scottish Munros. That's like all the big peaks in Scotland. So that's a prestigious event and a very big endurance event, but she kind of did it not by competing in a macho fashion. She sort of did a tortoise and hare type approach, and I think you said her superpower was micro naps. So what she's doing, she's moving more slowly, she's sleeping in a very different way to normal, but using that as a superpower to keep running for longer and hence keep her slow speed going for longer time using micro naps. And it's an entirely different way to just the macho, keep going till you drop type of attitude. And that was sort of an aha for me as, okay, this is a different sort of a perspective that we were seeing through your book. And there was some talk about maybe that's mediated, that skill is a female superpower, mediated by estrogen. I think the jury's probably still out on that.
Yeah, again, that was like really early research that suggested that estrogen might be having a protective effect on the brain during sleep deprivation. I think Jamie's story is so interesting because she spent 2 years planning her Munro round. So that's 282 mountains in Scotland. She wanted to break the record. And it came to her because she heard the previous record holder on a podcast talking about it. And he is a very fit former Marine. She freely admits a lot faster than her running, even though she's a very accomplished athlete herself. And he's very used to doing kind of adventure sports and in the mountains all the time. But in this podcast, he said that he was sleeping 8 hours a night. And she sort of thinks, I never sleep 8 hours a night. So she starts to think about the skills that she has. And on previous adventure races where she's been in teams with men, she's realised that she's been able to handle the sleep deprivation much better than they have. Like, it hasn't phased her. So she based her whole plan, this massive spreadsheet of 2 years of planning, around the fact that she could do this with less sleep. and she did break the record. And I think there's something, I don't think it matters if you're male or female or whoever you are, there's something to learn there about what is my individual strength, what am I good at, and how can I use that to my advantage. So yeah, the jury is out, I think, on the research. There's some kind of interesting aspects to it, but how you kind of measure the kind of sleep deprivation and what that does to you out in a multi-day race, you know, when you're doing that in the lab, the two things aren't really comparable. It's quite difficult to study, but there were multiple women in our book, including Jasmine Paris, who used their ability to handle sleep deprivation to their advantage and win a race outright, along with all the other things that they were good at, which is the planning, adapting as they go along, doing a pace that they can maintain, making good decisions around eating and what kit to wear and all those kind of things, that there are so many factors that play into it. It's never going to be one thing, but they, you know, their strategizing is based on what am I good at and how can I get an advantage in this race.
I guess what is something that you guys want to see in the next few years, like some changes that, you know, big or small, whatever, what would you like to see from the running community or the ultra endurance community in general?
Yeah, I mean, we finished the book with a manifesto. So that's kind of us setting out what we feel needs to change. And I think, as we've alluded to, having more research on women, you know, female specific sports endurance research is kind of what's really underpinning everything. You know, until we get a better understanding of how women's bodies work, we can't give women the right advice that they need in order to kind of, you know, succeed in these kind of events. But, you know, it filters through to everything that we've talked about, really. You know, kit that's designed for women. Running shoes are still not designed on women's feet. They're still designed on men's feet. And then the size has just changed a little bit. And the other thing is kind of races, like we've talked about. Yeah, just thinking through a female lens, and, you know, she races as a set of guidelines that racers can use to try and make their races more female friendly. And everyone just, yeah, kind of just accepting that we are viewing sport still through a male lens on so many different levels, and we need to flip that around. And if that means that, you know, we don't do research on men for a while, then so be it. You know, men have had their
got plenty of data.
Yeah. And I think there's something about visibility as well. So we talk about that in the book and kind of getting equal sports coverage, etc. And I think hopefully our book will help in that conversation. I think we've had feedback from lots of women who maybe have now hopefully got a bit more confidence that they can do this, that maybe their bodies are built to do endurance, and it's not kind of the big macho thing that they've perhaps been led to believe, but actually they can do these kind of events in their own way. And yeah, hopefully we've helped to provide some of the stories that will inspire them to give it a go.
If people want to get their hands on a copy of Ultra Women, would you like to direct them anywhere in particular?
Yeah, I mean, it's available on Amazon, but you can also, if you don't buy via Amazon, you can get it via Canterbury Press, which is our publisher. And yeah, I mean, if you Google it, it'll turn up in various different places. So it's readily available online.
Okay, absolutely cool. One of the things I should say is that the cover struck me as being excellent. You know, simple and powerful.
Yeah, we procrastinated a lot. Yeah.
We had arguments about it, did you?
Well, we had a few different designs that were put to us, and there was a lot of back and forth before we decided on the final cover. So yeah, it's nice to hear that, and it does definitely stand out on a bookshelf. I think the color works really well.
Yeah, the color is really good.
Is the runner in the photograph anyone we know, or is
no? It's just a stock image.
Okay.
And where can people follow you if they, I mean, we mentioned Instagram at the beginning, but is there anywhere else that you'd like people to go and see?
I mean, I think Instagram is the best one. We're both on Blue Sky as well, and LinkedIn. Or if you, just Google us, our website sort of pop up. But certainly Instagram for me is the best one.
Yeah, I
Okay.
think that's where we've been mainly talking about the book, isn't it? So
And we'd love people, if they do read the book, to shout about it on Instagram,
Leave reviews.
leave reviews, and yeah, definitely go onto Amazon and leave a review as well, because that makes it more discoverable by other people as well.
yeah, thank
Okay,
you both. It was really
brilliant.
nice to chat to you.
Yeah, it was great to chat with you guys too. And the episode should come out mid-November.
Want to do our summary thoughts?
Sure.
First of all, the book cover is absolutely kick-ass. It's kind of a large monochrome picture of a powerful female runner on a simple sort of graded yellow, orangey background. Very impactful, I think, and will pop in bookstores. And I think was in a competition for the best book cover, best sporting book cover. I know I voted for it in a competition somewhere. There are some great stories out of history and also some from today's trailblazers and champions. So if you like reading about, I think it was Emma said each chapter starts with a story from an athlete or a researcher, and some of those are historical, some of those are present day. So that's kind of fun. There's a lot of learning and adventure to be had there. For us men, it's a great reminder of how different the challenge can be for women. And by different, I usually mean more difficult. It also reminded me of how far we still have to go. I mean, it never occurred to me until I read the book. Why do women's tennis matches have fewer sets in them?
Yeah, I didn't realize that they did.
But, that's just another example of the take for grantedness that we have on this side of the gender fence. So good stuff.
I guess I echo some of that. It's a great read with a lot of information that I guess I was reading for the first time, which says something because, we read a lot of running books and some
Mm.
of it really, really was like, oh, wow, okay, I didn't know that. Some amazing stories, and it was eye-opening to realize how women have been working on some of the things that are in place right now, like the ability to defer due to pregnancy. It's actually been years.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that, it took so long before it was implemented. But yeah, it's slow change. I mean, it's change, so we have to be grateful for that. But yeah, these things they don't happen overnight. Having been running for decades now, I actually never thought that female-only events were necessary. Reading this book made me realize that I've been pretty sheltered during my experience. I was never pushed by a man on a start line of a race, which was something that they talked about. One of the stories they had, one of the
Mm.
women mentions that. Like I'd never experienced something like that. I've never been harassed while running, even just, like catcalling and stuff. I mean, granted, I run with headphones, so maybe like I've been catcalled and I just haven't
I
heard
don't
it.
hear it.
Which, is just, ignorance is bliss. That's just the way it is. But yeah, I've never been harassed while running. I've never felt scared. Um, Also, they talk about these unisex race shirts that they used to give out at races. And if I'm honest, I kind of used to like those because I actually hate that women's fashion trends cycle in those crop top, like, um, uh, crop
Yeah.
top kind of shirts that are just too short. Like, I don't like those. So every 5 to 10 years, the race shirts get unwearable for me. Like, I just don't like them. So yeah, but
Interestingly, I always used to be jealous of usually the women's tops because they tend to have V-necks.
yeah,
And
I
I
like the
thought that was
V-neck.
kind of
Yeah.
nice. And then they give me my shirt and it had a round neck, and I go, oh, why can't I have one with a V-neck like she's got?
So maybe the trick is you make it unisex with a V-neck.
Yeah.
Then both me and Alan will like it. But yeah, all of these things I didn't really realize how it was catering towards men. But I guess, that's kind of what they do. Although, yeah, and that these things could actually be a reason why women don't feel included or don't feel safe. Like I
Mm.
think that whole safety perspective was eye-opening. I mean, it's not that I haven't heard people say they don't feel safe running, but I didn't think that it was such a big factor. And in the book, they really say this is a big reason why women are deterred from competition. Reading about the popularity of the She Ultra made me realize how important events like that are, just as was mentioned in the podcast, stepping stones. Maybe not that, that we shouldn't have like women and men only starts at every race, but maybe to have an event or two in every area where, the women that are like not sure, that, are maybe intimidated, well, they can go try that. And then after that, they'll have the confidence they need, and they can go join the other starting lines with everybody else. Yeah, very eye-opening, I thought. So a great book overall, and good stories.
Yeah, little bits of goodness in various aspects, stories, science and history learning, and adventure, and insights into how far women have had to come and still probably have to go.
Okay. So do you want to do the outro so that we don't get any 1-star reviews?
Thank you for listening to another episode of Running Book Reviews. Big thank you to Lily and Emma for sending us review copies of their book and for spending time with us today. I guess we should also thank Canberra Press for book services. If you'd like to leave us feedback of how we can improve the podcast or want to suggest a book for further review, please leave us comments on social media. Just leave us comments anyway on social media. On Facebook and Instagram, we are Running Book Reviews, and on Twitter or X, we are reviews_running. Please also follow us, or just basically sign up on your favorite podcast platform so that you can follow our new episodes as soon as they come out. If you've been listening for a while and like to help us out, there are a few ways. Spread the words, share the news, tell people about your favorite episodes and link them up. Just do that now, because we're getting near the end of the episode, and you could just link it up and send it to one of your friends.
Or maybe you've already tuned out, in which case, well, don't.
You said I was doing the outro, so we wouldn't get negative comments.
Okay. Go ahead, Alan.
Get back in your box. You can leave us reviews on Apple Podcast, or you can rate us on Spotify out of 5 stars. Leaves the space so Liz can comment about if you'd like to leave us a 1-star review.
That's why you're doing the outro.
Okay, good.
So that I don't say stuff like that.
Okay, cool. We're also on Buy Me a Coffee, so you can link to us on a platform called buymeacoffee.com. Just go and find a creator called Running Book Reviews, and you'll find some various outtakes and bits and bobs and extras that you can view for free. There's a little button where you can buy us a coffee if you want, but don't feel obliged. That's all for now from Running Book Reviews. Bye for now.
Bye. Alan, you haven't stopped recording.
But I've just finished. Give me a chance. God.
You're just
fat shame me.
waiting.
You fat shame me at the front, and then you nag me at the back. I'm going to leave this in. I'll be getting sympathy letters from people.
Yeah, I bet. Only the ones that are not frequent listeners to the podcast and they don't know you very well. They'll give you lots of sympathy.
Okay, cool. Funny.